In the bustling chaos of a hyper-connected world, there exists a rare breed of individual who has mastered what many of us secretly yearn for, the art of standing alone, not in isolation or defeat, but in quiet, unwavering strength. This isn't about being a social recluse or wearing solitude like a shield. It's about something far more profound. It is the mastery of self-reliance in an age of endless dependency. Imagine you were in a crowded coffee shop, surrounded by people hunched over their phones, desperately seeking validation through social media likes and shares. Then you notice that one person who is sitting comfortably alone and fully immersed in a book or their thoughts, radiating a sense of peace that seems almost foreign in our frantically connected world. They've discovered something precious, and that is the profound contentment that comes from being complete within oneself. This isn't the lonely figure you might imagine. This is someone who has learned to distinguish between solitude and loneliness, understanding that they're as different as thirst and drowning. They've discovered that true strength isn't measured by the size of their social circle or their Instagram following, but by their capacity to find fulfillment in their own company. Think about your own life for a moment. How many decisions have you made based on others' expectations? How often have you dimmed your light to make others comfortable? This person has broken free from these invisible chains. They've learned that authenticity isn't just a buzzword from motivational posters. It's a way of life that demands courage but offers freedom in return. In our professional lives, we often believe that networking and constant connection are the keys to success. Yet this individual has discovered that true influence comes not from being everywhere, but from being genuine somewhere. They understand that quality of character trumps quantity of connections every single time. This isn't about embracing misanthropy or rejecting human connection. Rather, it's about approaching relationships from a place of wholeness rather than need. Imagine bringing a full cup to a gathering rather than an empty one hoping to be filled by others' approval. That's the difference between someone who knows their worth and someone who needs others to define it for them. Consider the modern workplace, where team player has become both a requirement and a cliche. Our independent soul has learned to collaborate without compromising, to contribute without conforming. They bring their unique perspective to the table precisely because they've spent time developing it in solitude. In relationships, they're not the one desperately swiping right on dating apps or clinging to toxic connections out of fear of being alone. They understand that romantic relationships should complement their life, not complete it. This understanding makes them not just better partners, but more discerning ones. The financial markets may fluctuate, jobs may come and go, relationships may ebb and flow, but this person has built something more valuable than any external security. They've developed internal stability. In a world where anxiety and depression rates are soaring, they found an anchor in self-reliance. This isn't about having all the answers, it's about being comfortable with the questions. While others frantically Google life's challenges, seeking quick fixes and validation, this person has learned to sit with uncertainty, to wrestle with their thoughts until they reach their own conclusions. They understand that wisdom rarely comes from a notification. Their morning routine doesn't begin with checking social media to see what they've missed. Instead, they take time to check in with themselves, to set their own agenda before the world imposes its demands. They've learned that the most important conversation of the day is the one they have with themselves. In an age where personal brands are carefully curated and authenticity is paradoxically manufactured, they stand out by simply being. No filters, no carefully crafted online persona, no desperate attempts to prove their worth through virtual validation. Their personal growth isn't measured in followers, but in the depth of their self-understanding. When they speak, their words carry weight not because they're trying to impress, but because they've spent time developing thoughts worth expressing. They understand that silence isn't a void to be filled, but a space where wisdom grows. In meetings, at social gatherings, in any context, they don't feel the compulsion to speak unless they can improve upon the silence. Their home isn't decorated to impress visitors or to match the latest Instagram trends. It's a genuine reflection of their taste and values, a personal sanctuary where they can fully be themselves. They understand that your space shapes your peace, and they've created an environment that nurtures their soul rather than their social status. This person has mastered the art of saying no without offering explanations. They understand that their time and energy are precious resources, not unlimited commodities to be distributed at everyone's request. Their boundaries are not walls built from fear, but fences maintained from self-respect. In their professional life, they don't chase titles or recognition. They pursue excellence for its own sake, understanding that true satisfaction comes from meeting their own standards rather than exceeding others' expectations. Their career choices are guided by personal values rather than societal pressures or peer comparisons. Their financial decisions aren't influenced by keeping up with the Joneses or maintaining a certain image. They've learned that material wealth is a poor substitute for inner richness. Their spending reflects their values, not their insecurities or the latest trends. When challenges arise, they don't immediately seek advice from 20 different people or post their problems on social media. They've developed the emotional intelligence to sit with their challenges, to think them through, to trust their own judgment. This doesn't mean they never seek counsel, but when they do, it's from a place of wisdom rather than weakness. Their leisure time isn't filled with endless social obligations or mindless scrolling. They've learned to enjoy their own company, to pursue hobbies for personal satisfaction rather than social media content. Their weekends aren't measured by the number of events attended, but by the quality of time spent, whether alone or with carefully chosen companions. In a world of constant noise, they've learned to appreciate silence. In an age of endless distraction, they've mastered the art of focus. In a culture of perpetual connectivity, they've discovered the value of disconnection. This isn't isolation, it's intentional solitude, the kind that breeds strength rather than loneliness. They understand that life's most significant achievements often happen in solitude. The book written in quiet hours, the painting created in peaceful solitude, the business plan conceived in moments of independent thought. They've learned that creativity flourishes not in the chaos of constant connection, but in the fertility of focused solitude. Their self-worth isn't tied to their relationship status, their job title, or their social media metrics. They've built something more valuable, a deep, unshakable sense of self that remains steady regardless of external circumstances. This isn't arrogance, it's authentic self-knowledge. When others are caught in the whirlwind of trends and social pressure, they remain centered, not because they're immune to influence, but because they've developed strong roots in their own values. They're like a lighthouse in a storm, steady, reliable, and true to their purpose regardless of the weather. This person has learned that the most important relationship they'll ever have is with themselves. They've invested time in understanding their own thoughts, feelings, and motivations. They've developed the emotional intelligence to be their own best friend, their own trusted advisor, their own source of comfort and strength. Their happiness isn't dependent on external validation or circumstances. They've learned to generate their own joy. to find peace in their own company, to create meaning in their own existence. This is not just independence, but an emotional self-sufficiency of the highest order. In a world that often mistakes attention for worth, they've learned that true value comes from within. They don't need to broadcast their achievements or seek approval for their choices. Their satisfaction comes from knowing they're living in alignment with their values, regardless of who's watching. This isn't about achieving perfection or never needing others. It's about building a strong enough internal foundation that connecting with others becomes a choice rather than a necessity. It's about approaching relationships from a place of wholeness rather than need. When life inevitably presents its challenges, they don't crumble or immediately seek rescue. They've developed the resilience to weather storms, the wisdom to learn from difficulties, and the strength to emerge stronger. Their self-reliance has become their superpower in a world of dependency. So when you see someone who stands alone with quiet confidence, don't pity them. Don't assume they're missing out on life's connections. Recognize that you're witnessing something rare and valuable, someone who has mastered the art of being complete within themselves. This is the true art of standing alone, not in isolation, but in wholeness. Not in rejection of others, but in complete acceptance of oneself. In a world that often confuses independence with loneliness, they've discovered that the ability to stand alone is not a weakness to be fixed, but a strength to be cultivated. Remember, the person who has learned to stand alone isn't missing out on life. They're experiencing it fully, authentically, and on their own terms. They've discovered that the most important audience for their life's performance is themselves, and that's an achievement worth celebrating.